Vince McMahon is back in charge of WWE Creative. This, according to multiple sources. I'm Omer from Real Take Wrestling, and let's talk about it. Before we do, though, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right, so the hour that nobody's been waiting for has finally arrived. Vince McMahon has reportedly taken back control over WWE Creative. And for those of you who watched Monday Night Raw last night, you probably would have noticed last night's show wasn't necessarily the best. One of the reasons for that is because it was apparently rewritten multiple times, even during the show. And on top of that, Vince McMahon himself was on the headset and reportedly throughout the night just started to take back more and more control over the operations of the show. So much so that it is basically unrecognizable from what Triple H's vision was. So I will start with the PW Insider report. So PW Insider last night reported that Vince McMahon was, quote, firmly back in charge of WWE Creative and was personally involved in the April 3rd edition of Monday Night Raw, and that there were a number of last-minute rewrites that were ordered for Raw only minutes before the show went on the air. There was some evidence to this. There was a photo that was going around of the production team being handed scripts being handed papers that basically signaled a change of what was going to happen twice after the show had gone on the air already. It is known that McMahon had his own office at that taping, and the chief content officer, Triple H, who, remember, he came out in the beginning of the show, and he said, nothing is going to change. We are here now, together forever. He came out and he did his spiel. He got the crowd riled up. This was, you would think, an attempt to try to quell any discussion of Vince possibly returning. However, the report went on to say that McMahon became more and more involved as the show went on, and he ended up in the gorilla position for most of Raw, overseeing the proceedings. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, said that Triple H is now kind of relegated and Vince is in charge. Here's the quote from Dave Meltzer. He said, quote, he being Vince McMahon, he was running TV tonight. He's back. It is what it is. It will be what it was before. And if people think that was bad, it will be bad. And that's just the way it is. Levesque will be head of creative and will be doing busy work and all that stuff. Vince is going to have final say in everything. And it's a damn shame. Now, the other part of this story is that Fightful have reported now that morale backstage is taking a hit. Sean Ross Sapp and FightfulSelect.com came out with a report where they said that talent are just not happy. They are worried. They're not happy about what's going on. And I believe there was one report, I'm not sure who this is attributed to, but there is a report that going around last night that a talent said it kind of nuked, quote unquote, the atmosphere in the locker room. Because as the night went on, the talent backstage kind of realized what was happening, in that Vince McMahon, after selling the company and after basically consolidating power, somehow, by the way, this is the crazy thing about all of this, right? As we're going through the news, as we're going through the proceedings of what happened last night, Vince McMahon, not only was he able to take back creative control apparently last night, when he sold the company, he wound up with more power than he had beforehand. Because remember, before he was just overseeing WWE. Vince McMahon is now the chairman of this new company. He's the chairman of this new company that's going to be created with the merger of WWE and UFC. He's above Dana White in the pecking order. And that doesn't mean that he's going to have day-to-day run of show over UFC. I don't think that's going to happen. But the fact that is the reality we're living in, it kind of speaks to like Vince's intentions and the fact that he never wanted to go away. And how kind of hungry he is for that power. That's what drives him. That's what's always driven Vince McMahon. It is that lust, for lack of a better term, for power. And it's a shame. because now we're past the news. I'm just going to go into my own riff. If you thought last night was bad and you think that, hey, well, maybe it's a one-time thing, maybe it'll get better. The only way this gets better is if Ari Emanuel puts his foot down and says, Vince, you are not running creative in WWE. That is the only way this happens at this point. He's consolidated enough power that he only answers to one person and one person only. That is the CEO of Endeavor, Ari Emanuel, the new owner, for all intents and purposes, of WWE. And think about it like this. This show, the Monday Night Raw show in question, which was terrible, god-awful, this was a show that was written by Triple H beforehand. And Vince kind of just came in last minute and was like, pal, this isn't going to work for me, brother. Changed it up and did all his rewrites and stuff, right? Imagine what a show with Vince McMahon moving forward is going to be. Because I've said this before, and I know that there were a lot of people who were optimistic. And I understand being optimistic. However, I think a lot of people let their optimism blind reality. And the reality that's been staring us in the face ever since Vince McMahon announced his return to the company has been that Vince will find his way back into power. He will find his way back into controlling creative. He will find his way back to running Monday Night Raw, running Friday Night SmackDown, and having some sort of say in what's going on down in NXT. That is just where we're at. And we can pretend like that wasn't the case, and we can be like, I'm positive. I'm really positive about what things going. I don't think Vince McMahon's going to happen. Oh, Vince McMahon's not going to come back. Ari Emanuel, in his interview with MSNBC, in CNBC, said that he feels like he has a lot to learn from Vince, and he doesn't plan on having Vince go anywhere. That gave Vince the green light to be like, all right, well, I ain't going anywhere. I'm coming right in. And if talent are pissed, you're damn right. They have the right to be pissed. Because with Vince McMahon running creative the last time around, just less than a year ago, WWE was doing some of the worst television that has ever been conceived as far as professional wrestling goes. And honestly, we want to talk about all this stuff. Vince coming back, Vince being in charge of creative. You know who this helps? You know who Vince being in charge of creative helps the most? It's AEW. Because Tony Khan is looking at this saying, I'm going head to head, or I have to book against that easy. Because the way Vince, especially recently, had been booking was just nonsensical, didn't make sense. It was okay and good sometimes when he had those big moments with those big stars. Outside of that, there was no continuity. There was virtually no good storytelling. And it just kind of, it just was a bad show. I don't know how else to put it. It was a bad show. This is not a good thing for WWE. It is not a good thing if you're a WWE fan. You can delude yourself into thinking it is, but it is bad. As someone who watches the product, as someone who follows the product, as someone who wants the product to do well, Vince McMahon should not be in charge of creative. Triple H was doing a spectacular job. Look at the build-up to WrestleMania. Look at WrestleMania. That was... to me, it was like a top 10 wrestling-wise. It was a top 10 WrestleMania. But from a spectacle standpoint and what it meant for the company, Triple H did a kick-ass job, put on one of the best WrestleManias ever. And after all of that, I'm sorry, I'm a little flustered because I'm trying not to curse. After all of that, we're sitting here and we're back to square one. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame. Can't wait to see what SmackDown's like. But hey, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of Vince McMahon being back in charge, reportedly, of creative? Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do you feel some sort of way? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you haven't already done so, do me a big favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at RealTakeW. You can follow us on Twitter at RealTakeW for all your updates. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and keep it real.